definitely summer in Wisconsin. It has been very muggy and hot. I gotta tell you about my job. Wow, it's supposed to be 2 days a week, but lately we've been so busy it's been more like 3. But anyway, it's just watching a little local do some work here. Anyway, it keeps me plenty busy and a lot of exercise. So Terry noticed the other morning that what she calls turkey skin on my arms has disappeared because I put on a little muscle and tightened that skin up. And I was thinking how that is different for men and women. She can say something like that to me and it's like, oh, cool. No big deal. If I told her that her turkey skin was gone from her arms, she'd be freaking out. Oh my God, I've got turkey skin. No, I had turkey skin or whatever. But anyway, of course, with men, we would say something like that, not even thinking about it. So they've just been switching a local customer, apparently. Empty lumber rack there. But anyway, I was gonna talk about my job a little bit. You know, you climb in and out of that truck 30, 40 times a day. It's just nonstop for 10 hours is about the least amount I worked at a day, So it's been, I think, really good for me. But it's not all drudgery because I drive through part of downtown Madison along John Nolan Drive, which takes you onto the Isthmus. And Madison is between 2 lakes, and the downtown and Capitol are on the Isthmus. So it's beautiful, and it's nice to kind of cruise past there and see what's going on, all the people walking and riding bikes and all of that stuff. So I do get to enjoy some of what I'm doing. But those lakes are really fantastic things to have, and when I drive on that isthmus, it reminds me of flying in and taking a photograph or two coming into the city. When you fly in, if the wind's out of the north, you land from the south, and you get a great view of the city. But one day, Terry and I, my mother had passed away, and of course she didn't get to choose what time of year that happened, and so it was dead of winter. And we wanted to get to Wichita, Kansas for her funeral. So I went to rent the airplane I normally rent, which is a nice Aero, retractable gear, reasonably fast. I had a flight instructor told me to put it into his words, if the goddamn thing won't do 150 knots, you might as well drive. Well, that Aero wouldn't quite do 150 knots, but it was pretty decent airplane. But somebody had reserved it for a check ride, and I had to rent a backup airplane, which is a Cherokee. They have some fancy name for them nowadays, Archer. I had to rent an Archer, and it's a non-retractable gear. It's a fixed pitch prop. Just everything about it is lesser quality. The Aero's complex, so it's got a constant speed prop, which is sort of the equivalent of an automatic transmission in an airplane. But anyway, we there's things you take for granted as a pilot that your passengers don't. So Terry and I, we get there in the morning, early in the morning. We want to leave right away and get to Wichita by noon. It was probably a 4-hour flight in that airplane, and I asked them to put that airplane in a hangar overnight so it would be warm when we got there. Well, somehow that didn't happen. It's like 8 below zero. The airplane won't start. I'm cranking, and finally I get this thing to fire up. And airplanes are notoriously hard to start when they're hot or when they're cold. So anyway, we get it finally going, and we're getting out of Madison, and so I'm cooling off in the car. Man, it's been really hot and muggy here, but I probably said that already. But anyway, I got interrupted. My daughter called. So my wife and I, we're headed to Wichita, and we take off. And the way it works in a airport that has a control tower, you talk to the tower for all your takeoff clearance and ground stuff and everything. You talk to ground control and then the tower. And once you get up over about 1,000 foot above the ground or so, the tower normally will turn you over to departure control, which is more of a air traffic control function. And so off we go, finally on our way to Wichita, and we get up over the isthmus. And the things that passengers don't know, that in your mind, as a pilot, you're always like, you've always got a place picked out. Something drastic happens, you've got plan B, right? So we're flying along, and they tell me, whatever, Archer such and such, go to departure 122.7 or whatever the frequency is, I don't remember, 134.85, whatever. So I change the radio to that frequency, and I go, departure, this is Archer such and such. We're, 2,300 climbing and runway heading or whatever. And the guy says to me, okay, altitude and heading your discretion, and off we go, right? So just as I quit talking to him, the airplane quits, just whoop, dead. And it's like, damn, and so I'm kind of jacking with the throttle and trying to figure out what's going on. In an airplane, you don't use the starter once you're in the air because the propeller windmills, so you don't have to worry about that. So I'm, checking everything, the mixture, going full rich on it, making sure, all that stuff. And then it dawned on me that, I had the I had the electric fuel pump running. You use two fuel pumps in a low-wing airplane, the engine-driven pump and the electric one when you're taking off, so that you got backup. And I had just shut that electric one off a while ago, and it takes a little while to run that fuel out of the lines, right? So I flipped that switch. Sure enough, the airplane comes back to life. I called departure and tell him we got a fuel pump issue, and he's like, do you want to declare an emergency? I said, no, I just need to go back. And so we went back and landed, and Terry was livid. It wasn't that big a deal to me, but of course, I'm the pilot. I trained for this stuff, and she was so mad. She said, and I think it was a mistake for her to say this, but she said, this never happened when you owned your own airplane. And it was like, oh yeah, no it didn't. So that's how I came to own my second airplane. Had I known that's all it took, I would have shut the engine off some other time, Anyway, I hope that you're all well and enjoying the summer, and I'll throw some footage in here from the rest of Portage, which I did not know. I mean, I knew it was named Portage, but I did not realize, because I come into town a different way, how big a presence the Wisconsin River is here. And wow, it's gorgeous. It's really cool part of town. And so I got a little drone footage of that. So if you're ever around Portage, Wisconsin, it's got a lot of history, railroad town and all that. So I always like hanging out around here and wishing I could catch out today, but obviously that's not happening this summer, I'm afraid. Anyway, take care. good ride. Right there. And that one. Oh man, lots of rides. A little too close to the engine though. Kind of missed that spot.
That's what I said.